Summer movies are why I love movies. Every year since I was an itty bitty, I've looked forward to the first weekend of May because that's when the real movies come out. So, summer 2023 was a bad look all around for Hollywood. There was an absurd number of big budget flops. Now, box office isn't equivalent with quality. Plenty of good movies have made no money, and quite a few bad movies have made all the money. Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, Bottoms, and Blue Beetle were some great summer movies last year that just didn't find their audience in theaters for one reason or another. But outside of Barbie, Oppenheimer, Spider-Verse, TMNT, and Guardians, most of the movies last summer failed to move the needle culturally or monetarily. After last year, I don't think I'm being hyperbolic in saying this summer felt like a make or break moment for the industry. So, I took it upon myself to see damn near every summer movie that released this year. By virtue of either time or availability, I wasn't able to get to Maxine, Fly Me to the Moon, It Ends With Us, The Crayon Movie, and The Crow, because I'm not seeing The Crow, you're not seeing The Crow, we already know. So, was this summer better than last, or is Hollywood locked in a cycle of failure? Before I answer that question, please hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell if you want more content goodness. So, I'm going to be reviewing all the big movies from May to June in order of their release, starting with Fall Guy, ending with Alien Romulus. So, with the preamble out the way, let's talk about The Fall Guy. Can't lie, I'm really disappointed that we, as a society, slept on The Fall Guy because this was pure summer movie fun. Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt are just crushing it. I think the one thing the movie had going against it is that the trailers made it a little hard to discern what the plot is when in actuality the movie is a fairly straightforward romantic action comedy with a light mystery keeping the plot moving. It's not setting up a universe of Fall Guys or mad sequels. It's not straining to say something important. It's just a goddamn joyride. The action slaps, and it's a love letter to practical stunt work, a tragically underutilized art form in our digitized era. The comedic chemistry between Gosling, Blunt, Winston Duke, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Henning Wadham is fantastic. This felt like the movie David Leitch had been dying to make his whole life, and I'm so happy we got to see it. If you haven't watched it, check it out on Peacock. It's the best movie you didn't see this summer. I give it an A. Next up, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So I went into this one with a lot of trepidation. I think the Planet of the Apes reboot was not just the finest trilogy of the 10s, but in the conversation for one of the all-time best trilogies. It ended on such a poignant, satisfying note that I didn't really think we needed to continue on. While I really enjoyed Wes Ball's Maze Runner movies, I wasn't sure if he was gonna, really brings the Ape saga to life. But I was happy to be surprised. Taking place centuries after the death of Caesar, Kingdom is set in a fully post-human world. We follow a young ape named Noah who goes on a journey to find his clan after they've been kidnapped by another clan ruled by the villainous Proximus Caesar. Along the way, he's joined by a human companion, and the story puts all three on a collision course that could potentially change the balance of power in the Planet of the Apes. While it doesn't quite reach the heights of Dawn or War, Kingdom is a solid introduction to this new era of apes. Like the last three films, Kingdom is a technological wonder that will leave you staring at the screen in awe, and not only how well they've rendered the apes, but this whole ruined world as well. The actors are fantastic, with Kevin Durant being a particular standout as Proximus Caesar, a performance that will forever live in meme infamy.
What a wonderful day!
The ending does set up an intriguing conflict for where the intended trilogy could go, and if those sequels deliver, I can easily see Kingdom's stature rising in the same way Rises has as a result of the story it set up. It's not the best Apes film, but it's a worthy entry in the franchise. I give it a B. Moving on to If. After making a name for himself as a director with the first two Quiet Place films, John Krasinski went for a change of pace with his fourth film, If. Or wait, maybe fifth. This is his fifth film. If, a family film, it follows B, a young girl who's staying with her grandmother while her father's in the hospital for a procedure. Well, at her grandma's, she encounters Cal, played by Ryan Reynolds. Cal works with imaginary friends, or ifs, and tries to get them new kids after their old kids forget about them. B can also see ifs and decides to help Cal find new homes for the ifs. I was not crazy about this one? Well, I know the intended audience is 5 to 12-year-olds. The best kind of kids movies work for all ages. The multiple storylines never organically coalesce into one another, and at points the movie can feel like a series of disjointed vignettes. Like, there's all these angles and none of them really like have that moment of like, makes sense. Krasinski is going for Spielbergian sentiment, right down to getting Yannis Kaminski behind the camera. But the set design and general stakes hold it back from reaching those heights. Kaylee Fleming is an engaging young performer. Krasinski is charming as her dad. I mean, honestly, the biggest strength this movie has are the performances of both the live action and voice cast. Outside of the film cinematography, obviously, because it's Janusz. But the world building just isn't as tight as it should be, which is a shame because Krasinski showed in his quiet pace films that he can do it well. The rules regarding the ifs and who can see them is thrown into question by the big third act reveal. What's supposed to be this really emotional moment left me on the couch like,
Hold on a minute, player.
while it has its moments, for a film about imaginary friends, it could have used a little more imagination. It's a C for me. So next up, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. I love the Mad Max franchise. Not as much as Hideo Kojima, but pretty damn close. The first Mad Max is one of my favorite works of apocalyptic fiction. The Road Warrior is still an impressive feat of practical stunt work. Thunderdome has its charms, and Fury Road is an unfettered masterpiece. Furiosa is a curious film. While it has director George Miller's fingerprints all over it, structurally it feels more akin to a biblical epic than the run-and-gun chase films the Mad Max movies generally operate in. Like, it's serious when it says it's a Mad Max saga because it chronicles Furiosa from when she was a young girl first taken from the Green Place, her young adult years with Praetorian Jack, to her becoming the Imperator we meet in Fury Road. It is so much movie, and I like it a lot. It just feels a little more unwieldy than the precision-tuned Fury Road. Ayla Brown and Anya Taylor-Joy both do excellent work portraying Furiosa at her child and young adult ages respectively. Taylor-Joy does a fantastic job embodying Furiosa, making her recognizable without feeling like a complete Charlize Theron impersonation. Chris Hemsworth is a worthy villain as Dementis. He's a cruel yet deeply broken man. There are moments where Hemsworth does some incredible facial work and gives you glimpses into a man warped by this insane world. And the standout for me though was Tom Burke, who was so damn cool as Praetorian Jack. He's like the Furiosa of this movie. I'd love to see a whole movie about that guy's history. The action goes undeniably hard, though there were more noticeable instances of CGI than in Fury Road. Thankfully, it was mostly limited to backdrops, but it was really apparent during some of the close-ups on the war boys and the war rig chase. Overall, I really liked Furiosa, but I didn't quite love it. It gets a B. Next, Bad Boys, Ride or Die. Welcome to June. So, of the movies I reviewed so far, only Kingdom made its money back. There was real concern we were going to have back-to-back flop summers. And then Bad Boys came through and said, alright, let's get this bread. Y'all, this movie was outright fun. I enjoyed Bad Boys for Life quite a bit, and was satisfied with that being the finale to the franchise. I was more than a little skeptical when they announced they were doing a fourth movie because, let's be real, how many good fours are there really? But my excitement for the movie increased ironically when the directors Adil and Bilal held their Batgirl film shelved. Considering that WB has shelved movies like Coyote v Acme, which people have seen and said is great, I don't believe for a minute that Batgirl was unreleasable. This is the studio that released The Flash. It's far easier for me to believe that Batgirl was intended to be the first film in a new era post-Flash, with Michael Keaton taking over the role of Batman. Once that plan went out the window, Smooth Brain's ass figured it'd be easier to show it for a tax break as opposed to retooling it into a standalone feature. Having a movie you put your blood, sweat, and tears into be deemed unreleasable has to be infuriating. And I had an inkling that Bad Boys Ride or Die could be for Adil and Bilal what Baby Driver was for Edgar Wright, which he made after getting fired from Ant-Man. It was a revenge film, a feature-length flex of their capabilities as directors, and y'all, that is exactly what Ride or Die felt like. This movie had some of the best action I saw all summer. in quite a while. The sequence towards the end, where the camera is flicking back and forth from first to third person as Mike and Marcus storm the villain's hideout, is effing cinema. Reggie going off in the crib might be one of the coolest things I've seen in a not John Wick action film in the last decade. The jokes consistently land. I saw this movie twice, both times in fairly packed theaters, and every time Marcus came through with, "Mike, I didn't want to tell you this," the audience was dying. Pound for pound, Bad Boys Ride or Die is a crowd pleaser that goes toe to toe with the best of them. It is an easy A, hands down, like top 3 of the summer for me. Next, Inside Out 2. I liked it, didn't love it. Inside Out 2 is all about Riley going through puberty and the complicated emotions that come with it. The film did a really solid job depicting anxiety and how it can overwhelm your sense of self. I just don't think the mechanics of the plot were as tight in the first film, and there aren't as many moments that hit me as hard as the Bing Bong sequence from the first film. The entire time I was just like, this is good, but it's not like Inside Out 1 good. It's gorgeously animated, it's got strong vocal performances, and there's some solid gags here and there. The sarcasm bit got me, but overall this one was just a beat for me. Next, The Bike Riders. So I'm a big Jeff Nichols guy. I consider Midnight Special one of the best sci-fi films of the 2010s, and it's a damn shame it's more or less been slept on for the last decade. It was nearly 8 years since his last film, and I hope we don't have to wait that long again because I really enjoyed The Bike Riders. So, The Bike Riders finds Nichols back on his rustic Americana tip. It charts the stories of the Vandals Motorcycle Club over a decade from 1965 to 1975. The story is framed through a series of interviews between Mike Feist, Danny Lyon, and Jodie Comer's Kathy. Comer is a darn spark plug in this film. I had only seen her in Free Guy before this, and I was not aware she had this particular dog in her. She just brings the movie to life. Tom Hardy is fantastic as Johnny, the complicated, reluctant leader of the Vandals, and Austin Butler is pure aura as Benny, the epitome of action speaking louder than words. The ensemble is great from top to bottom, with Damon Harriman and Emery Cohen being particular standouts, and a fun Norman Reedus to boot. Nichols' direction and Adam Stone's cinematography really effectively bring this era to life, so much so that for a couple hours, I really felt like I was transported back in time. And Chad Keith's production design does wonders in selling a different time frames, and the makeup and costume departments deserve shout-outs as well. On a technical level, just everyone was on their job. It's a damn good movie. I would definitely add this one to the Blu-ray collection. I give it an A. Next, A Quiet Place, Day One. I was pleasantly surprised with this. I still haven't seen Pig. I know, it's incredible. It's on my canopy list, but this was my introduction to writer-director Michael Sarnowski. And honestly, he did his damn thing with this one. I enjoyed the first 2 Quiet Place movies. They really are post-apocalyptic family films, which for me has always been a fascinating tonal balance. I wasn't entirely sold on the concept of Day One off rip, but Sarnowski really managed to find a unique take that maintains the heart and humanist core of the series. Lupita Nyong'o is terrific as Samira, a terminally ill cancer patient who just wanted to go grab a slice of her favorite pizza in New York City when the aliens decided to ruin everyone's day. Joseph Quinn is the co-protagonist, Era, a law student who joins Samira basically out of sheer terror of the situation. The initial chaos is really well though I'm still curious how they figured out sound was the trigger. I found Samira and Eric's evolving relationship, as well as Samira's arc as a whole, unusually moving for a horror thriller. There's a quiet, fleetingly sweet scene towards the end of the movie with Samira and Eric that stuck with me more than any of the horror shenanigans, which were really solid, don't get me wrong, but it was those emotional beats when the movie tells you what it's really about. Just got me. Not to mention, it's got a mic drop of a final shot. So, A Quiet Place Day One was a pleasant surprise. I give it a B. Next, Horizon Chapter 1. I respected the hell out of Kevin Costner for putting his money on the line and bringing his vision to life. I enjoy Costner as both a screen presence and director, so this is one I was looking forward to quite a bit. I didn't love Horizon Chapter 1, but I didn't hate it. I certainly saw movies I liked less than it, Its biggest problem is that it's a 3-hour part 1. It feels like 3 hours of place setting. Well acted, beautifully shot place setting, but place setting nonetheless. The opening hour follows the initial settlers on Horizon and a harrowing attack by an Apache warband, a rogue Apache warband. There's like inner turmoil with the groups. From there, the movie introduces you to so many characters. Like, major name actors will just show up an hour, 2 hours into the film. Now, I enjoy a good Western, and for me, there was some appeal in simply seeing a classic, grand-scale Western on the big screen. While the movie felt like place setting, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't interested in seeing where the story goes next. Like, it looked great, the performances were good, it looked like a proper movie, which is enough for me. So, it's hovering around a B-C+. If Horizon Chapter 2 is a satisfying and entertaining continuation, then Chapter 1 will be bumped up to like an actual BB+ because it will have served as a narrative function. Next, Despicable Me 4. Probably my favorite kids movie this summer. I love that the Minions Despicable Me movies have evolved into pretty much modern day Looney Tunes, especially since WB keeps fumbling the actual Looney Tunes. The plot is threadbare as can be. Gru has to go into witness protection because a villain he helped incarcerate escaped. Also, some of the Minions are turned into Mega Minions for reasons. Clearly, plot is not the strongest part of Despicable Me 4. But you know what? That's fine. Because like Minions Rise of Gru, this movie was clearly designed around chasing the gag at all cost. And I'm all for that. I was never not delighted by the vending machine minion. The Mega Minions Rampage is pretty funny. My biggest gripe was that there was a lot of repetition in the signage in the city during the Mega Minion sequence, and I just thought, having a fun time for some sight gags, akin to like when Shrek and Fiona arrived in Far, Far Away in Shrek 2, and we saw like all the parodies of big name companies like the Hollywood sign. At this point, you either love the Minions or you can't stand them. I'm partial to their dumbassery, so Despicable Me 4 gets a B. It's fun. It's funny. I'm basic. What can I say? Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. The only streaming feature on this list, I had to show love to Eddie. The first Beverly Hills Cop is one of my favorite movies. Like, it's literally the kind of movie I obsess about making. Axel F doesn't quite reach the heights of the original, but as far as legacy sequels go, it definitely manages to justify its existence beyond simple nostalgia bait. The action is fun, the cast is game, and the jokes generally hit. You can tell Eddie really wanted to deliver because he is locked in as Axel. In the first 5 minutes, the movie quickly assures you that the jokes haven't lost their edge. This is one I really would have liked to see in theaters because I think it would have played well with the crowd. If this is the last Beverly Hills Cops movie, and I kind of hope it is, then at least it finally got a better ending than Beverly Cops 3. It gets a B. I said Beverly Hills Cop 3, I'm tired. Anyway, we're talking about long legs. Yeah, I can't lie, y'all, this one really didn't do it for me. I don't like using the phrase glazing sincerely because I don't think there's anything wrong with really liking something. But man, I kind of feel the critics for glazing this one. It's a vibe, sure. Nick Cage is delivering an all-time performance, but this one never came together for me. Micah Monroe is a great actress, and her performance isn't the problem as much as the character. I just kind of need my protagonist to have, like, some degree of dog in them. Like, it's just hard for me to watch a movie about an FBI agent who can't handle her business when it really matters. Like, I don't know, the occult elements are neat, and Osgood Perkins, the director, maintains a consistently off-putting atmosphere. Like, the vibes are there and palpable, and if this is your type of hype, you will probably be satisfied. Me, I was generally kind of bored and annoyed. It gets a C. Next, Twisters. If you feel it, chase it. God damn, I love me some Twisters. Lee Isaac Chung and Michael Sarnowski both avoided the indie to blockbuster curse. With Twisters, Chung delivered a classic meat and potatoes crowd pleaser. The ensemble is so good. Glenn Powell, Daisy Edgar-Jones, Anthony Ramos, Brandon Perea, Tunde Adebimbe, everyone is just killing it. The cinematography, gorgeous, casting a sincerely affectionate eye on the American heartland and Oklahoma in particular. The titular twisters are always thrilling and keep you on the edge of your seat. The soundtrack slaps. My only real nitpick is that I wish there was a bit more of a blend of practical and digital effects, as absurd as the rolling house in the first movie. But I saw the movie twice, had a blast each time. It's the kind of movie that makes you want to like wear a cowboy hat, drive a truck, shotgun a beer, and blast some Luke Combs. It's an A, easy. It's tied only with the next film as my favorite of the summer. And speaking of course, about Deadpool and Wolverine. I did not know the Fox movies meant this much to me until watching this movie. Talk about swinging for the goddamn fences. When they announced this one, like most red-blooded Americans, I was hesitant because Logan is, Logan. But lo and behold, they found a way to disrespectfully respect the ending of that film and deliver a take on Wolverine that we've always wanted but just never really thought we'd get. Whereas like Logan is a solid payoff to the truth of who Wolverine was in those X-Men movies. I think this one, while it does have that haunted feel to him, it still gives us a more fun, rambunctious, pure comic book take on the character. And not only that, it actually does the sort of cameo fest nostalgia stuff with a concise point. Like, I thought No Way Home was fun because, like, yeah, it's through Spider-Man, but I don't think it really, like, had any real weight to it, I don't feel like Peter learned anything that he hadn't already learned from Uncle Ben dying. With this one, I like the idea of endings, of like, giving these cast-off characters whose fates have been thrown to the wind just due to corporate fuckery one last chance to, get out there, have a swing at it. It was great. I mean, if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil the cameos, that you probably have seen it. I mean, shoot, who am I kidding? You've probably seen the I'm gonna make a name for myself today meme. So all the cameo performances, great. Sean Levy did pretty good with this. I love that this felt like a 90s, early 2000s comic book come to life. Arguably one of the most comic book Marvel movies that Marvel has made in its 16 years of existence. Easy A for me. Next up, Trap. I liked this one. I had a lot of fun with it. I know that the reviews were mixed and audience sentiment is 50-50, but to me, that's a good thing. I like divisive movies. I think if, everyone's like glazing it like a long legs, then, it's not indicative of how the audience truly feels. Love it or hate it, and that seems to be the feeling on Trap. I like this one a lot. It feels really old school, and I think that's what I dug about it. This felt like a real meat and potatoes thriller, like the type of movie that was just a standard at the box office through like the mid 90s to probably early 2000s. Josh Hartnett is holding it down, giving a strangely charismatic performance as the titular killer, the Butcher of Boston. I forget his character's name. The Philly Butcher. He's a butcher. He kills people. And the FBI has set up a trap at a concert, and so a good part of the movie is about him figuring out how to get out of the situation. And it's just a fun cat and mouse thriller, and sometimes, it strains believability, but there's so much fun and so many strong performances. I like the dark sense of humor it's operating on. This is a solid B movie, just like a pure B movie. I definitely think this is one that'll like start to get a life once it hits streaming. If you haven't seen it, I don't know what it's going to stream on. Probably Max. When it hits there, give it a watch. It's a fun little time. Next, Borderlands. This is one of the most fascinating failures I have ever seen. it's just like, how did they go so wrong? Like, you watch it and you're like, how did this happen? Because it's bizarre. So, to like the 10 people who watch me on G4, you know, I know a thing or two about video games. I'm not a huge Borderlands fan, but I have played quite a few of the games. So I have like a baseline understanding of the world. And it's weird because this movie is like, I know all the individual pieces are good. I like Eli Roth as director. I love Cate Blanchett. And I guess if the movie has any one point in its favor is that Cate Blanchett is consistently a baddie through the movie's fucking hour 45 running time. Kevin Hart can be used well. Jack Black is a delightful voice actor. Ariana Greenblatt, loved her in Barbie. But it's like, you got the ingredients for a really good stew, and you looked at it and said, what if we made cookies with this? It just doesn't work. Like, the flavor is off. And there's parts that are good here. Like, the set design is really strong, and it brings the world of Pandora to vivid life. Like, it looks like the games, but also the VFX is like in that weird, not cheap, but not state-of-the-art, so it's kind of in that weird uncanny valley where like it looks real-ish. The action choreography is solid, and there's some cool bits, but like it's missing that sort of hyper violence and that extra level to make it feel like Borderlands. It does this weird thing where it tries to focus on like a found family sentiment, which never was the heart of the Borderlands games, and just like, this would be much cooler if it was an R-rated, like a hard R band of assholes who reluctantly have to work together, as opposed to like the unbelievable schmaltz and sentiment that it goes for. It's just, it's one of the most baffling pieces of big budget filmmaking I've seen. I mean, to me, it's this year's Flash. It's equally like, wow, you spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this. It's a D. Only reason it's not an F is that, like, yeah, there's on some technical levels, like set design, costume design, like there's clearly some effort put into this movie, which is what makes it an even more baffling failure, because you could tell people cared, people tried, and they just tried in the wrong direction. It's not quite like Halo, where you're like, oh, so you didn't even fuck with the games at all. This is like, some people here did play the games. I just don't know how this was the conclusion you came to in translating it to a movie. And I think for me, that's what makes it weird, is like, at least with Halo, I could be like, yeah, these dudes don't know what it is to like be up after midnight with your best bud chugging Mountain Dew, making a Warthog run on Legendary. I feel like that's not the case here. So, the strangest D I've ever seen. Moving on, Alien Romulus. So, to wrap up our list, we are now at Alien Romulus, and I gotta say, I had a really good time with this one. It is easily the best Alien sequel since Aliens, though admittedly that's not a high bar to clear. I thought Kaylee Spaney was great as not Ripley, or Rain, but still an R. David Johnson was good as Andy, the AI they use, who has this interesting character journey throughout. I saw a headline that said it's like the Ready Player One of Alien movies, and to some degree, I agree, because it is striking like an interesting tonal split between Alien and Aliens. And to its credit, it is a patchwork of generally every Alien movie. And it was cool to see, like, you know, the prequel elements that the Prometheus movies introduce get some payoff or acknowledgement in here, particularly with that third act monstrosity. I thought that was actually kind of like, okay, well, this isn't how I saw that story ending, and I don't think it's how Ridley Scott saw the story ending, but at least, like, there's some organic, bridge between the two eras with this movie now. There's some fun set pieces, like the zero grav sequence where Range trying to navigate through the alien blood. I thought was really fun. The finale was cool. I guess the biggest thing is that it very much is just playing the hits. It is kind of like right down to another character saying, "Stay away from her, you bitch." Like, it's a fun enough movie that I'll let it get away with it, but I fucking hate that shit. Like, it's such a Gen X thing, and I don't mean to be a Gen guy, but like, dude, these fucking middle-aged dudes cannot let go of the movies they saw when they were 12. Like, they have to. If I'm making an Alien movie, it's gonna be just like the Alien movie I saw when I was 12. And like, yeah, I think that's what fans want, so maybe they're on something there. I just know me as a viewer, it always takes me out of it, because it's like, who are you referencing this for? Like, as the character. And it just was very out of place for who said it to say it, because nothing in their character beforehand hinted like they'd be the one to drop that line. But we gotta say the thing. So, I mean, that's probably my biggest gripe. I think it's not as good as Prey, which I think was a really new, unique take on the Predator. This is very much just paying pastiche to all the Alien films that came before it. And it's like probably the best. It's the Alien 3 everyone's always wanted, more or less. Not in that it goes to Earth, but more so a good movie built in the image of the first two films. So I give it a B. It was a good time. I had fun. Pretty good in IMAX. So overall, as you can see, I generally liked most of the movies I saw this summer. There was only one movie this year that I was like, fuck. And that was Borderlands, which we all kind of knew going into it was not going to be good. But even the ones I disliked, like Longlegs or If, like, I can, on paper, see that there's an audience for this. Like, it understands who it's trying to talk to. Like, my boss took her daughter to go see If, and while me and her were like, yeah, I wasn't crazy about it, her kid loved it. And on Hard Knocks, I want to say it was DJ Moore's kid, was asking him about what's the bumblebee's name from If, so clearly made an impression on that kid. Same with Longlegs, like a lot of horror dudes and like indie horror people, the A24 crowd, really rocked with that movie, and good for them. I'm glad this summer we really got diversity at the box office in terms of like genres, expressions. It didn't feel all like one note, big budget mush. And even in the big budget space, it wasn't all just like superheroes and old franchises. Even like the reboots and Twister and The Fall Guy very much felt like they were doing their own thing and just had the name for like brand recognizability, even though I think that kind of hurt The Fall Guy. The superhero movie we did get in Deadpool and Wolverine was phenomenal. Like, overall, this was a good year. Will they be able to build on this? I don't know, because we don't know. These all were movies made, in a pre-strike environment, but now there's this real focus on cost cutting, on profitability, and it seems like they're making some of the safest choices. But I don't know, man. Like, I feel like Deadpool was kind of a risk, an R-rated MCU movie. Twisters had no guarantee of success. Like, people like Twister, but I don't know, I don't feel like it's one that like Gen Z goes to. Like my cousin, who's like 10 years younger than me, he just watched the first one for the first time before seeing the movie. And he's in his 20s. So I think it really was the strength of that cast and the marketing that made it work. But I will say it does give me hope. Because last year I was really down on the industry. It's been a surprisingly strong year overall in movies, starting with Dune and Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, which I thought was just a fun little time at the movies. So I'm hoping we can get some bangers throughout the fall, even though the calendar doesn't exactly inspire confidence when our biggest movies are like Venom 3 and The Lion King 2. But who knows? Maybe there'll be some fun surprises popping up. But that does it for me today. I will see you soon with the first ever Wonder Update video. I feel like a real YouTuber. So thanks for sticking around this far. If you like it, as always, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Please tell me, what was your favorite movie this summer? Do you agree with my assessment? Do you disagree? Let me know. I'm always down to talk about some movies. Later, y'all.